time. These give me an extra inch compared to the Vibrams.
Yeah.
Just want to be a little bit taller.
I think this is your third or fourth time at Web 2, which means I think you may have eclipsed Paul Otolini due to his illness.
Sergey Brin takes the stage at Web 2.0 Summit. I'm John Furrier with SiliconAngle.com's coverage of Web 2.0. Go to SiliconAngle.com. And we're in Palo Alto, California, where I saw Larry Page riding his bike yesterday around town. So here's John Battelle with Sergey Brin and Vic.
I do want to start with Google Plus, because you announced in the earnings last week that you're at 40 million or so.
Over 40 million.
Over 40 million Google Plus users. Are you happy with that?
We're surprised. I don't think anyone on the team ever thought that a month after we went to open signups, less than a month, that we would hit that number. It's above our internal projections, even our wildest projections. Obviously, we have a lot yet to do, but we're clearly very, very happy with the numbers we have right now.
Are those 40 million people actually using it?
Well, they signed up and they're using it. I think it's very important to understand the strategy behind Google Plus, and the strategy is revealed in the name. We chose the smallest modifier we could on Google, just a plus, because our goal is not to go build something separate and distinct, but to really take the Google services that people love already, Android, Google Maps, YouTube, Google Search, and really make those properties magical. And so I think 40 million is a start as we've taken those users and upgraded them to Google+, but we have a long way to go. And
well, it's about 4% of your user base.
Not bad for our first month. We're pretty excited about it.
So Sergey, what would make you happy a quarter from now?
Well, I can tell you what has really made me happy already with respect to Google+. And I'm not a very social person myself. I haven't spent time on social networks in the past, be they, the ones, Friendster or Orchid or which is still the number one in Brazil, by the way. But or Facebook or Twitter. I haven't been very active on any of them, and I've tried to because I feel it's important for my job to really understand that phenomenon. But Google Plus, I've instantly found compelling, and I've used it. I've made a number of public posts. I make private posts. I share with family on it. So as a user, I've really enjoyed it, and it's ironic because I actually vigorously argued with Vic and the rest of his team about how their sharing model worked and how you form relationships and everything. And it's actually working beautifully for me.
So you're telling me that you may have disagreed with Vic and his team
using
about
Google
how the product was actually designed.
Great, compelling
But I was wrong.
statement
I
by
mean,
Sergey.
we had a lot of
How were you wrong?
debates.
I'm going to jump in here because Sergey was intimately involved in the creation and the whole design of the team. Google Plus wouldn't have existed had it not been for Sergey's support. In fact, there's some of our favorite features in Google Plus that literally Sergey designed, things like our Hangouts. He actually challenged the team to make sure that we put
the
that
Hangouts are, just in case people don't know.
Oh, it's this unbelievably cool multi-user video for free for up to 10 people.
Sergey Brin,
we do it
key
for free.
player
We use special
in
Google
Google
backbone
Plus.
technology, so you can literally have your family in Europe, in Asia, in North America, all connect. The camera switches dynamically to whoever's speaking. It's an amazing, natural experience, a very high-fidelity way to connect
coverage.
face-to-face
Google
with the people that you
executives.
care about. And
Talking about
Sergey
Google
was
Plus.
intimately behind pushing us.
Sergey, the
to
founder's
make that
back in
happen.
control.
I was
Larry
being
Page,
sarcastic
CEO.
at the time. But little did I know.
Sergey doing products.
But that said, it came out very well. So
Yes.
anyway, so I think the lesson is you should not listen to me
Sergey's being
as
humble
a
here.
designer, but as a user, I'm very pleased with the results.
Yes.
And it's been, I've connected with people, sort of friends I haven't really touched
Will
base with
Sergey
in a while. And
put an internal
I've been
memo
able to
out via
reconnect
Google
with them.
Plus?
And I
That's
don't
the
think
question I would
I
ask.
was able to do that with existing services because of the way their sort of sharing models worked. It was just, they didn't really work for me.
Off or on? With
It was everyone or no, or, it was just this kind of, the circles I think work very well for me, and that was one of the things I actually debated with Vic. Oh, it's too complicated. And now I love them, and I I actually make very complicated, I have like dozens of circles, and I
Well,
mix them up.
I think it might be fair to say that, Sergey, for you and Vic, for you, Google Plus probably works really, really well because your circles are also people in the world of Google and adjacent to that world, and so a lot of those people are active users. Now, let me tell you about my experience, which is nobody is on Google Plus that's in my world, other than, I'll tell you what it has been very similar to the people that I follow on Twitter.
John Patel
and so
inserting
my
his
circles of
editorial
what I call
now,
colleagues,
which I think he's wrong.
extremely
Google Plus is
vibrant
highly
stream in
successful.
Google Plus. My circle I call family. I'm
The
still
echo
waiting for someone
chamber
to pick
of
up the
Silicon
phone.
Silicon Valley. It might
so,
not be popular, but
well, I
Google
see them at
Plus
home,
is
okay,
a huge
but
success.
I don't see them on Google Plus.
And so I disagree with John Patel here. Let's
We had
see
Sean
what
Parker
Sergey
on
says.
day one, and we talked a bit about Google Plus, and he said it's very hard to beat the network effects of taking your friends. You may go over to Google Plus, and you may even recruit some of your friends, but then those friends have
People
to
get
recruit their
confused
friends and
when they
so
don't
on.
understand. Google
And
Plus
then
is
you
a
have the
winner.
Wella Balsam problem. I keep making a reference to this commercial in the 70s that no one knows what I'm talking about. But how can you address that? How can you get, my
Ask Sergey,
my mother
the Larry
finally got on Facebook.
and
but
Larry
now she's gonna
Page,
go,
the question
what,
about the
John?
Google
I gotta
engineer.
get on Google what?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of answers to that. The first of all, the point that Sean made is right. The incumbent has a huge advantage. And if you play the same game,
Here comes
that's
the
a hard
corporate
game to
BS
win.
speak by Vic.
We're going to play a different game. It turns out that your friends, your mother, your cousin, they're already on Google. They use it all the time. We've never given them a reason to express their identity in their relationships, and we're going to do that. Now, in the initial period, you're right. You may come to Google Plus and you may discover that your friends and your family aren't there, that in fact very other interesting people are there, and it may take some period of time until one day, 2 months from now, you come to Google, and that little icon lights up in the top right-hand corner and says you've got 2 notifications, and you click, and lo and behold, your distant friend is on Google Plus. We're in an enviable position that we have the users that come to Google that give us the time to grow that.
They have the
brand.
users, but they don't
And
have the
so
utility
we're
of those
quite
users.
happy
Facebook
with
owns the
position
user
we're in.
experience, and they deliver it.
Wouldn't it have been faster if you just integrated Facebook Connect? I'm serious.
Yeah, there was some challenges with that approach.
I guess there might have been.
Great
We'll ask
question by
Brett Taylor
John
whether or
Patel.
not he thought that
Great
was a
question.
good idea. He's up after you guys. I love this show.
SiliconAngle.com's
You should
continuous
see the
coverage of
green
Web
room
2.0.
mojo
Sergey
that
Brin
happens in
and
the
Vic
back.
Conendra.
It's really quite something.
Vic runs engineering, and Sergey's the co-founder.
Sergey, I'm glad you're here because I was going to ask Vic this question, but I bet you have a point of view on it as well. I wrote a rather lengthy piece.
We're going to get Sergey on the cube on
about 2 weeks ago,
SiliconAngle.tv.
opining that Google Plus was more than a service that was tying together various disparate elements of Google's services and products, but rather that this was a statement of your entire brand shifting. That Google equals search has been true since 1998. Up until about a year and a half ago, when Google had so many different things going on with Android and YouTube and so on, that it was kind of hard to know exactly what Google was. And that trying to tie it together, it might be that your brand is moving to Google equals the operating system of your life. Is that crazy? Somewhat in the ballpark?
But I completely agree with you that some of our products and services seemed scattered, certainly brand-wise, over the past few years. And we definitely have been trying to bring them together. And you might have noticed that we're cleaning up the look. With Google Plus, we're cleaning up the sharing model across all of them. I think it has been somewhat of a change of approach. In some ways, we've always run the company as let 1,000 flowers bloom. But once those flowers do bloom, you want to put together a coherent bouquet.
Sergey Brin,
And
co-founder
we're
of
in the
Google.
process of doing that.
Revamping the products.
And I think it's, myself,
from
once again, as
search
putting my user hat on,
applications.
I've been much happier as a Google user, just having sort of the shared aesthetic, the shared experience. And you're going to see much more of that because we're going to try to make Google more and more of a seamless experience across the various disparate products.
User experience is the key. for
We
Google.
had your colleague Steve Ballmer here
I'd love
last
to hear
night.
some examples from Sergey.
And I asked him how it was going with Microsoft Office Live, and he said, "We're beating them, we're beating them, we're beating them," and he meant you.
They're beating themselves.
You know, obviously Google Docs is a very important part of, and it's going to be integrated, or is it already integrated with Google Plus?
It's going to be.
It's going to be integrated with Google Plus. What's your response to Steve claiming that he's beating you up when it comes to installs and usage of those apps?
Well, I can't speak to Office Live. Clearly Microsoft has been the incumbent in the enterprise space with Office for many, many years. But this is one area I would be surprised to hear an aggressive claim like that. Let's see, we're at about 4 million businesses now that use Google Apps. 5,000 sign up every day. And
It helps that it's free.
there's the free version, but there's also the paid version once you get over, I can't remember, 50 users or something like that. We have lots and lots of paid. I could break that out. I don't have the stat off the top of my head. But both of those are growing at phenomenal rates. And I believe they're more than doubling every year, but I'd have to get back to you. I mean, it's been really successful. Whenever I run across any company, especially here in Silicon Valley, any startup, they pretty much all use Google Apps, near as I can tell. We can have, let's see, who here works at a startup uses
show of
something
hands.
other than Google Apps for their email? I see. How many hands do you see?
I see 2.
Sergey Brin,
3.
co-founder
All
of
right,
Google.
why don't we make this fair? And who uses Google
coverage.
Apps at their company for their email?
Google, not strong in the enterprise at all.
So, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure Office Live is a wonderful product, but I mean, in terms of market share, and perhaps San Francisco is not entirely representative, but this is what I see in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I can just interject, I've been with Google for approaching 5 years. And
Where were you before that?
I used to work with Steve at Microsoft. Wow, that was hard to get out. There is something going on at Google right now that is hard to explain unless you're there. The momentum behind things like our browser, Chrome, the momentum behind Android. I mean, just last night we introduced the new Nexus Galaxy, and it is absolutely the most amazing phone I've ever used. The momentum.
Yeah, but you're a programmer, Steve Ballmer would say.
Yeah, that's true. I'm a programmer, but I know that consumers are flocking to these devices left and right. I think Mary Meeker, when she put up the slide that showed Android momentum, I heard an audible gasp from the audience. The momentum is staggering. And so when you think about things like YouTube and Maps and Chrome and Android, it's amazing. We're having a lot of fun at Google. It feels really, really great.
What's it like? No, let me change that. How is it different now that your founding partner, Larry Page, is the CEO?
It's been really great, honestly. I personally have been very happy in my new role, for one thing, because I've gotten to explore technical work, which I really haven't had time for in the past, 5 years or so. And I have some exciting projects. I mostly won't talk about them today, but probably the one that has gotten some public attention now that falls under my purview is the autonomous car project.
Yep, we've talked about that here.
Yeah, which I'm really excited about, because that can make if that's successful, it's obviously continues to be, it's going to take a lot more development to get those to market. But I'm optimistic that can happen. And there are a lot of people out there today who can't really get around, whether you have a disability or you're old or you're young.
Sergey Brin,
There's also just
co-founder of
incredible
Google, changing the
urban
world.
congestion caused by the need for parking because
Google
the
car.
vehicles can't be
Total pipe
shared
dream.
reasonably and can't drive
I'm not sure
themselves
that's
away.
going to happen in our lifetime. but great vision.
There's highway congestion because because humans can't accurately drive vehicles with smaller spacing. I mean, there's a tremendous opportunity to improve the world with projects like that, and I'm really excited.
I know you can't tell us what else you're working on, but can you tell us, are they problems like that?
Yeah. There are a few, basically what I'd call
Sergey's
advanced
running
research projects
science
of
projects.
that nature, and there are a few infrastructure projects which are probably technical, and I'd bore you with if I tried to go into the
You could
details.
try me. I'd see if I get bored.
You got
I
bored enough with the
remember,
autonomous
I remember
cars. I'll
trying to
skip
get
that.
into one of your data centers when I was writing the book, and it was like, you're like, why would you be interested in a data center?
John Patel,
I'll tell you why.
great guy. John.
Fine.
Do you miss
the
being
hard
in the
questions.
flow of when it was a triumvirate, or is it still the same? I mean, you were very involved in the Google Plus project. I was actually a little bit surprised to hear that, because I would have thought that Larry made social literally the tent pole of the company.
Well, Google Plus obviously predated some of our shifting management roles, so I was involved certainly quite a bit prior to that. Now I think Vic a little bit overstates my involvement. I'm more of the peanut gallery, as it were. So I get to
You got some
harass
pretty big
him when I
peanuts
feel
there,
like,
I think.
but whenever there are any challenges, I'm like, oh, okay, it's your problem.
Sergey Brin.
Do you have any usage stats on Google Plus? I don't want to drive too hard into this, but engagement.
Sure, I'll give you one.
Something.
I'll give you one that should blow your mind. It blew my mind. We had, in the last little over 100 days, 3.4 billion photos uploaded to Google+. That's a big number even by Google standards. Somebody's using the product if they're uploading that many pictures. Now, part of it was
Not
we
John
offer this
Patel's
magical
friends.
service on Android devices. If you've got the Google+ client, we discovered this problem. People had pictures and videos on their phones that were stranded. And so what we do for free, unlimited, all your photos, all your videos, is on Android devices, we automatically upload them to the cloud at no cost. And so you never lose a picture or a video again. And when you come back
Great
to the
What are the
desktop,
sharing settings on those when you're
only to
uploading?
you. Only to you. They're all private to you.
Great
We do
strategy.
not believe in oversharing. We have a different philosophy. We think curation matters.
I want
There's
to
a-
ask you that. I want to ask both of you that question.
Anti-Facebook
What do
rhetoric
you
coming out
make
right now.
of
Here we
the
go.
Open Graph?
Well, let me speak from a philosophical standpoint.
Please.
There is a reason why every thought in your head does not come out of your mouth. Right? And so we think a core attribute to be human is to curate, and how others perceive you by what you say. Look, even something as simple as music. I don't want all my music being shared to everybody. I'm embarrassed that I like that one Britney Spears song. I want everyone else to know that I like you too. Right? That's cooler than saying you like a Britney Spears song. And if I feel that sensitive about something like music, then how much more am I going to feel about things I read? We want to do social in a way that is more like real life, where you actually take time to think about how you express your thoughts, your ideas, your likes to other people. And so I think you're going to see us take a very privacy-centered approach, one very, very respectful of individuals.
I want to ask you, related to that last comment about privacy, about what's been called the real names debate. Pseudonyms
Classic
are
competitive
extremely
strategy.
important to people.
Going after Facebook's
as
core
some
privacy
speakers
problems.
earlier in the conference mentioned, many hackers like to call themselves by their handles and not by their real names. And there's any number of very good reasons to not use your real name. There's any number of bad reasons to not use your real name, but you currently have a policy which is you must use your real name.
Yeah.
Eric in the press defended that as we are an identity company and therefore we want to have the right identity. Will you reconsider that?
So the answer is a bit more complicated. Let me give you the short version. The short version is we plan to support pseudonyms in the future. We're working on it. So it's
Oh,
coming.
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, it's coming. We're working on it. It was largely an issue of development priorities. It's complicated to get this right. It's complicated on multiple dimensions. One of the dimensions it's complicated on is atmosphere. If you're a woman and you post a photo and Captain Crunch or Dog Fart comments on it, it changes the atmosphere of the product. And so we wanted the product to have to be a product where you could discover people you know. They're not called Captain Crunch. They're called Lisa Adams, and that's how you discover the people that you know. That doesn't mean that we're not going to support other forms of identity.
Dick
It's
Conundrum.
coming. It's just that this is the way we wanted to roll out the service.
Heads
This
of
is the
engineering of
atmosphere we
Google
wanted
with
to set.
Sergey Brin,
And as
co-founder.
we are out more than a month, we've been out in beta, open for
Google
about a
Plus
month.
is really
we'll
doing
add
well.
these features.
Unlike John Patel's commentary, it's
The second
great.
thing I wanted to ask you about was a leaked memo on Google+.
Here we go. This is great.
Sorry, just had to do it.
Good job, John.
Because the engineer, it was sort of a peanut butter memo moment in a way. I was like, oh, that dude's so fired.
Love this question.
But for those of you that don't know, you know, obviously the Googlers are using Google+. This guy wrote a very impassioned memo about his view, his point of view about why he thinks that Google+ wasn't built correctly. Yeah. He thinks it was built as a product and not as a platform. And that gets into some of the questions about where's the API, where's the developer economy, and so on. But he says, you know, it was a failure to understand platforms from the very highest levels. It's your fault, Sergey. You didn't fire him. Good on you. He was mortally embarrassed that he mismarked his post as public as opposed to private. It was meant as part of a debate internally. I get all of that. But I think he made an interesting point that certainly became public. So how do you respond to that?
So I think I have two levels of response. The first response was, I will be lying to you if I told you that wasn't a bad day. You know, having my dad called me from across the country and seeing headlines that said Google Plus is pathetic, says Google engineer, or Google Plus is a knee-jerk reaction, which was out of a 8-page memo. It was one sentence that they took. That hurt, and to a lot of the people working on Google Plus, it was incredibly disappointing to see somebody in a faraway remote office who doesn't work with the team make those kinds of comments. And so it was, we never like to see that. Having said that, it gave the outside world a view of what we do internally. Originally, that was an internal document.
PR spin.
Larry and Sergey have fostered a community, an atmosphere, a culture of open discussion, open dissent, and debate at Google. And within the Google family, we are very honest and critical about our efforts. That's a different culture than other places I've worked. And that open culture, I guess the outside world got a peek into what it's like to work at Google. I think it's one of the things that makes Google great. That's why we didn't fire him.
Anything to add to that, Sergey?
Here we go.
I did see that memo. I didn't make it past the first 1,000 pages myself. But I would advise those who write memos to share them appropriately, privately or publicly. But also, if you want to get a point across to a large audience, try to confine to like a paragraph or so.
Slamming the writer. Poorly written memo.
Yes.
So sometimes I use it as nighttime aid now. To make a little bit of the way further.
Sergey's critical of
Well, he had a point which, I post every one that I talk to. I put up on my site and say, help me out, and I try to crowdsource questions, and I got a lot for you, Vic. And one of the themes over and over again was, where's the API? What's the strategy for the developer community such that I can develop cool stuff on top of Google Plus as a platform?
I'm completely the person responsible on the API side of Google Plus. And I'm telling you right now, we are going to take a cautious approach. We don't want to make the mistakes of others who released APIs, caused an entire developer ecosystem to bet on them and build clients, and then went back and revoked those things. When we want to be,
I have no idea who you're talking about.
Yes, we want to be developer friendly. When we release an API, we want developers
to control the
have high confidence
platform.
that they can trust Google. We have other products which are completely dependent upon the community of developers. Chrome, Android. So we have a reputation to uphold. And so I'd rather do it slow, do it carefully, and when we don't have our strategy figured out, don't do anything rash. And so yes, we have a developer API. You've seen us release some read-only APIs in the last couple of weeks. We have Google I/O coming in the spring. We're working on it. But we're not going to do anything haphazard or rushed that would offend the developer community by us having to step back over those APIs.
I want to invite the audience to come up and spend the last couple of minutes with questions. Do we have any questions?
Sergey Brin, co-founder of Google, with Vic Conundra, VP of Engineering, addressing the changes at Google.
Hi, John Mitchell, Read Write Web. I was wondering why the words mobile and Android were missing from the earnings reports last week.
Read Write Web,
Larry talked about mobile
blog like siliconangle.com.
But in the documents there was no mention. All the statistics were overall.
Well, we did.
Deer in the headlights. Here we go.
Last night, highlighting some of the Android numbers. See if I remember. We're doing about 550,000 handsets activated per day, and I think that's just the ones that we see because it's Android's
Sergey
open
Brin,
source. Of course, you can install it. You don't have to use Google services. So they're presumably some more than that. And we're almost at about 200 million devices out there. I mean, it's been a phenomenal success. I have Here, let me get out of my pocket. I guess I forgot to turn this off as I was supposed to.
Sergey
But
Brin,
this,
co-founder
the new
of
Nexus, I've been using it for a couple weeks, and I get them before they're released. But this is the first device it's just so beautiful. I felt like normally I just tape Velcro to the back so I can stick it places, and I'm like, oh, but it feels so good and so pretty. And ICS, it just runs beautifully on it. I mean, I feel like they finally had the maturity in the platform to pay attention to the finer aesthetic features, the fonts and everything. I've been really loving this device.
Android
Sorry, it's just the lock screen.
crushing
on
the
here,
market share gains
but
against
this
Apple.
is,
Two-horse race, Android
I think it's
versus
really come
Apple
across
iOS.
now a new generation of Android technology.
Google.
So I'm really looking forward to see the ICS devices really
Operating
take
system
off.
happening.
We want
Sergey
to
Brin.
go rapid fire with these questions because we're over time.
Sergey
Yes.
Brin,
Thank
building
you,
an operating system.
Vic,
into everything
Sergey.
Google.
I think one of the things Google Plus got right is the idea of granulated sharing, getting around issues of context collapse. But my question is similar to John. My Facebook social graph, for example, looks very different than Google Plus. I don't have a lot of friends and family there. So my question to you is, will you guys have a strategy for trying to get those users more engaged, or will you pivot and more like Twitter
Pivot, I
take
hate
on
that
a
word,
logged
pivot.
out user strategy?
Google is going
perhaps
to have
having
a
social
huge,
data now
huge,
layered on
huge
top
market
of browsing
base.
behavior,
It's just
giving
different
you
than
a richer
Facebook.
profile.
We think Google Plus is fantastic for families. I know my family uses the Messenger feature. They're all over the world, and they're completely hooked. They're in their 20s and 30s, and I'm seeing conversation like I've never seen before. And so we deeply care about families and friends being on our platform. It will take time. It will take time. We're in this for the long haul. We're going to be here, and your friends and family that you're talking about, I bet they already come to Google. And so we're going to give them reasons to use Google. So far, we've shipped the Plus part. Over the next quarter, you'll see us begin to ship the Google part. And by Christmas, you'll really start to see the Google Plus strategy all come together.
Over here.
All the naysayers are
You
against
did an
Google
exercise, Vic, or actually I think it was Sergey, where you had everyone in the room raise their hand who did use Google Apps, and it was almost everyone. But those of us who have Google Apps accounts can't use it with Google Plus. That's actually one of the reasons I'm not using. Actually, the main reason I'm not using it. So I'm curious.
Accept my personal apologies for that. The reality was, the harsh reality is that from a development perspective, the prioritization of doing a large body of technical work to enable Google Plus to work for Google Apps, we didn't anticipate that we were going to see this level of growth this fast.
Yeah.
So we thought we had a little bit more time. We're fixing it. That fix is imminent. It's in a matter of days.
Great.
And we promise not to make that
Heard
mistake
it here,
again.
folks.
Thanks.
Google
Over here.
really doing
Hi,
great work.
I'm,
Keep it quick.
I'm Candace Kuss from Hill and Knowlton, one of the WPP agencies. On behalf of all our clients who aren't Ford, I have to ask about brand pages. When are they coming? What's the details? What can you share?
Brand pages,
It's
good.
coming imminently. It's not
Imminently.
days, but it's a little bit longer than days. But it's only a short while longer, and we're going to open it up for brands. We are been overwhelmed by the interest that brands have to be on this service, and we've got some surprises coming up.
Will there be a different kind of display or other kinds of advertising on Google Plus?
We have some clever ideas we'll be announcing shortly.
Yeah, Matt Lindley with Business Insider. It sounds like you're working on a lot of side projects, Sergey. I have to ask, what does your day look like now? What do you do to these days?
My week is a little bit split, actually. I even in my narrow role, I kind of fear I've taken on perhaps too much. But I spend one day a week kind of with the top executives, kind of in the company level meetings. And then I split the remaining 4 between infrastructure and advanced research projects. And it actually is pretty challenging to do even all of that. So I'm pretty happy and satisfied.
Last question.
Candace Coda, IP Franchise. How important are games to Google Plus, and how aggressive will you be in promoting virality in the same way that's made Facebook successful?
When people come together, one of the most social things they do is play games with each other. And that's why we prioritize getting games on our platform early. We were very careful about the viral channels because we discovered that there were those people who loved to play games and those people who were very annoyed by it. And so we are turning up the viral channels carefully. And we're doing them in a way that if you are annoyed by them, it's a single click to mute them and you never see them again. But we're optimizing for the user experience first. And as we get that right, we'll continue to expand out those viral channels. I think we got a good balance so far.
So it's not too early to get on the
coverage
platform.
Of Web 2.0.
Not too early, not too early.
Sergey Brin,
great, thanks.
Vic Canandra.
Okay, Ben, I know I cut you off last time.
Motorola, if the acquisition comes through, is the plan to
Google Plus
pull an
is a
Apple, as
winner.
I would call it,
Sergey
pull an
Brin.
Apple and do what Apple does is great.
Here's a question about
one great product
Motorola.
per year, or is there a different strategy that you would have
SiliconAngle.com's continuous
being a
coverage.
software and a hardware company?
I think that's, unfortunately, I think we have to wait for that acquisition to close or not right now, and we're in this HSR period.
Sergey Brin,
So,
co-founder, Google.
I don't know. Ask us when it's a little bit
Larry
clearer.
Page is partner,
Well,
CEO.
once it's closed, why don't you come back and ask us?
I will.
Sorry.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
At least they're here in a quiet period.
Sergey Brin, Vic Canandra.
Please join me in thanking both Vic and Sergey for coming by Web 2.
SiliconAngle.com's coverage of
Sergey, thank
Web
you so
2.0.
much.
We had Larry and Sergey doing the thing there.
That was great.
I mean, Vic, not Larry and
All
Sergey.
right.
Vic and Sergey.
Next up,
Essentially
we have a
what we
pivot
got here is
from a friend of mine and
pull
an
up the
advisory
little
board member,
window.
a fellow who has
You and I have been talking about analytics all week, and what do you think about that?
Capital. He's going to
Okay,
talk about
you had
what
here
data
as
from
you had
everyday things.
Sergey Brin and Vic Canandra talking about Google. Mainly, the main questions were around Google Plus. The schedule was Vic Canandra, but Sergey makes an appearance at these events. He's very active in the community. He said he's not very social on Facebook or any other kind of social network, but he says he likes Google Plus. Has been involved in the technical decisions. And every time I've had a chance to interface with Sergey Brin, he's been very social with me. He's been, would handshake me, say, "Hey, John, how you doing?" He's been very friendly, asks questions, answers questions. He's not afraid to talk. And he actually likes to spill some stats once in a while. He talked about 800 or 500,000 activations on Android per day on the Android phone. And here we have David Hornick, who just came back from his famous Boondoggle conference. He's on stage right now. Dave Hornick's a venture capitalist who also runs a conference, which is kind of weird. He runs a conference and is a venture capitalist, and he gets people together, and he calls it the lobby. Haven't been invited. It's for media executives, so I guess I don't qualify. Thanks, Dave. I'm expecting my invitation next year. Well, back to Google. John Battelle basically said, no, he doesn't use Google Plus. None of his friends are on there. I find that to be absolutely the wrong case. Google Plus is a completely different marketplace. It's growing like crazy, and the numbers are amazing. I'm just seeing the uptake on Google. Google Plus has been phenomenal. It's a different kind of, it's a real people. It's not the echo chamber. It's not the Silicon Valley echo chamber. It's not the Facebook college network. It's essentially real people. They seem to got the spam problem figured out. Not a lot of heavy-duty spam going on with Google. But you hear Vic and Sergey talking specifically about the features. They've worked hard on it. Big technical problems. They're addressing them. And Google's doing great. Obviously, on the Android side, Android is absolutely growing super fast, making real headway as the 1-2 player with Apple, iOS. And obviously, the Apple iPhone is just heads and tails above Android from a feature standpoint and from a usability standpoint. iPhone is now still the gold standard, will be for some time. The iPad is just untouchable. No other tablet with Android or any other OS will come close, although WebOS is pretty good. But overall, great to see great to see Sergey out there. And actually, I was driving home yesterday here in Palo Alto, and I saw Larry Page riding his bike around my neighborhood. So with a kid on the handlebars, he got a small little kid in the handlebars. So it's nice to see that. Anyway, I'm John Furrier with SiliconAngle.com. You're here at the Cube inside Palo Alto. We are watching the remote Cube broadcast and coverage